What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode about this lovely red Cherokee that we have here. It's finally back on all fours, as you guys saw in the episode before, and now we're just putting the finishing touches on it. Last episode we had this center console out and I put the JCR fix in, or I think it's dirt bound, but now it's nice and solid. It doesn't go anywhere, and the TK shift linkage is all figured out and it feels great. Shifts through everything and it feels like butter. Another cool thing we got done is right here. You can see we got the lockouts done. The old ones were not that happy, and also half of these bolts were snapped off in it because Ford only uses 3 out of the 6 holes for their stock hubs. So these guys are a full 6 bolt. And what happens is the other 3 slots, I don't know if they're not threaded from the factory properly or they just rust. So some of them were snapped in there, blah, blah, blah. We got them out and we tapped them. So now everything is properly working great. Now we just gotta chase these threads of the lug nuts a little so we can get some clean lug nuts on there. And we'll basically be done with the wheel stuff. The only thing we really have to deal with to get all 4 wheels turning again is the drive shaft. In the first episode of this, I went over that this drive shaft right here that came in it, when it was on when it was on, you know, ride height for that particular Jeep, this was completely compressed. And we don't want that. We want, you know, a little bit of play like there. So what we're gonna do is we are going to get rid of this one, because if you can see, whoever put this together, they didn't properly phase it or it spun. I honestly don't know what happened, but it looks like it's like a homemade creation, because those welds are not typical good drive shaft welds. Those are welds that have been sanded down. So we're gonna get rid of this old piece of junk and we're gonna go to a newer piece of junk. Well, not really a piece of junk. It's got brand new stuff in it, but it's too long, as you guys can see, because if this was ride height, that's gonna be way too long. It's about the same length as this one. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna cut and shorten it, and we're gonna show you guys how to do that. So let's start slicing it up on our bandsaw, and after that, I'll show you our little secret to getting it perfectly straight again. Let's get at it. The first step to this is marking out the drive shaft. I like to do this to make it easier to phase once we cut it up. So I usually mark it with a marker or a paint pen, but Machu over there complained and he gave it a little etch. So we'll see what works the best. Let's get to cutting it. Grab the green machine, pull it on out. Not only are we cutting shafts though, we are also doing the water pump on this beast. So we got the coolant draining right now, slowly, and rad cap off to help it breathe, upper rad hose to help it breathe. As I've been working on this thing, I noticed a slow coolant drip and everything else is dry. So where's the coolant drip gonna be from? It's gonna be from the water pump. So we're gonna pull it off, throw a new water pump on. Hopefully this thing's nice and dry again. Coolant, surprisingly, it's pretty green. Most of these things that we take apart, it's an absolute rust mess, and it looks like wet clay inside. So I'm happy that this, even though it wasn't really physically maintained, it looks like, at least the cooling system was. So maybe it never overheated. You never know. The motor sounds healthy. Let's take off this water pump and we can really see into the guts of this boy. Now that we got all the guts out of the way, the important stuff is the water pump. As you guys can see, it's completely dry up here, and as soon as you start getting lower, let's see if I can drop this down in there. See, underneath the water pump, it is wet and it's trickling down onto the top of the oil pan. It's on top of the harmonic balancer, and there's a constant little drip stain on the bottom. Kind of goes down across the oil pan, and it's coolant. So it's obviously coming from the water pump. Let's get this pump off and really take a look, make sure it is the pump. But as far as I can see, the more I dig into it, the more and more it confirms it's just a water pump. Good thing they're like 15 bucks for Cherokee. Now that all the bolts are out of the water pump, it should just be a simple yank, and there it goes. Of course, Jeff forgot to put the bucket underneath until just now, so there's a little bit of wetness on the ground, but it's not bad. And like we said before, man, that water is clean. Really happy. This water pump doesn't look that bad either, but probably just it looks like that somebody replaced this before, and it's probably some crap auto parts store water filter or water pump. So I highly doubt that, you know, it's gonna last. The bearing's always going on, starts weeping, and that's what it looks like it happened here. So we're gonna throw gates on it, and we shouldn't have to worry about it for a very long time. Let's this thing drain a little, then we'll get this hose loose for the heater core, pop this off, take the hose off of this one and put it on the new one. Finally extract it off of the heater core hose, and you can see down here that it's definitely the weep hole. Definitely our culprit. It was pouring out of there. You can see all of the lubricant out of the coolant sitting on there as an oily residue. So I was sitting like that on the motor, and it was leaking out of there and causing this whole mess. I'm gonna pull this guy right off, put some dope on there, thread it on the new one, clean up over there the gasket material, and we'll have this thing ready to roll to put the brand new one on. This thing is such a breeze. I love working on Cherokees. When it comes to simple maintenance like this, it's so easy, feels so rewarding, and at the end of the day, it's cheap. You get to learn how a vehicle works, blah blah blah. So now obviously I've done them 100 times, you don't learn anymore, but it's still a nice thing to do, just because it's like going through the motions. You know how to do it, you do it well. So it's just another water pump on a Cherokee. Let's get back to it. So we got our cutting instructor over here, and we just started chopping the drive shaft. Try to get it as straight as possible, and since we're not putting an extension in, we're actually shortening it. We're gonna try to sleeve it with a piece of Dom. This is 1 3/4 from Matt's roll cage. It looks like if we clear this little weld in here, we should be able to fit it right in there, and then we can get a nice weld on it. While Matt's chopping this, I'm focused on this beauty right here. So we got this prepped and ready to go. Now we really just have to prep the area right here. We're gonna take a razor blade to it, scrape off all the old gasket material, and then we're gonna put a layer of gasket material, like, you know, Permatex makes like the Indian head stuff, and we're gonna throw it on here, throw it on there, and then we'll put the gasket on, tighten it up, start throwing water in here.
All right, guys, we got our drive shaft prepped. So what we did was cut it, took 2 inches out of it, because after calculations, that's pretty much what we needed. And I drilled a couple holes in it. Turns out 1 3/4, 120 wall fits right inside. So gonna sleeve it, plug weld it, and then weld up in between the 2 pipes, and that'll keep it nice and straight. Might not be balanced, but this truck has lockouts, this Jeep, and the drive shaft usually doesn't spin at high speed, so that's what we do for our fronts. Jeff and I, always seems to work. Maybe get a little vibration if you're doing 50, but rarely that's the case.
She's all welded up, and man, that shaft is absolutely beautiful.
It's the nicest one that we've ever made, to be honest. I'm kind of jealous, but hey, I'm happy it's going in a customer's vehicle. So that's ready to go. And over here, surface for the water pump is prepped and ready to go. Water pump prepped. Now we just gotta prep this. We're gonna spray some gasket material on here, and let it dry up. That's why I got it on the pencil. Here's my copper spray gasket. I've been pretty happy with it lately, so let's throw it on there and get to it. Out with the Pep Boy Special, in with the beautiful gates. Back in, power steering pump's back on, the bracketry for the idler pulley's back on. Now it's time to get the belts, or the belts. The pulley's back on, the water pump, and the fan belt, and we can start getting this thing back together. Finally. Then we get to work on this gray coil pack. It looks like this is aftermarket too. I don't understand these guys. These parts are so cheap. Just get the name brand stuff. Gates, I'm pretty sure, made water pumps for Cherokees to begin with, and NGK is the one that supplied the coil packs, so just get an NGK. None of this gray garbage that looks like it's about to crack off. Well, I've been working on the front engine and everything, so I'm not playing around with the exhaust. Now it's about to be fully welded right into here. We're hoping to at least put a clamp on the back, so, you know, inevitably when you crush the exhaust with a rock, it's easier to take out. But we'll see how that goes, since the pipe that we ordered is not going to correctly fit the back, even though Summit Racing said it's going to. But that's what you get for trusting Summit. Man, that is one beautiful coil pack. Much better than before. And not only do we have the coil pack in, we got new spark plugs. As you guys can see, I've been filling preliminary fluids, and I really want to get this exhaust in before we get it started. So let me show you guys what we've been doing to the exhaust to modify the pipe that Summit said would fit our Jeep. Step one of what we had to do with the pipe was cut off this end thing. Now, I don't know if it came from the factory with this oval or not, but that obviously is not going to work out with what we need. So cut this off because of where everything is underneath. We could take a good amount off, and the problem is we really want a straight piece to be able to slip into our muffler. So we got this off. We measured all this, and it's a little short, so we're putting an extension on here. We're borrowing our Driveshaft jig to get it nice and straight, and then we're gonna refit this thing and get to the back axle hump and see what we can do to modify that to tuck that back up, because right now it's hanging about the same length as the shackle in the back, and it just doesn't look good. Final rendition of our concocted pipe. So basically, we cut that dip off where it was supposed to go in, and we put a round piece on to fit into the exhaust or the muffler. Then we also had to modify where the axle dumped right here. Quick fix, just cut it, and then we also added an extension since it didn't stick out far enough. So now it's all ready to go. Matt's gonna finish up burning the last and final tacked area, and we can clamp it back on, and we'll finally have a full exhaust on this beast. Can't wait to hear how it sounds. That final rendition is now all welded up. We got our clamp in where we wanted to, and we even got a hanger on the back. Nice little one right off the unibody. This thing does not move. Let's see what she sounds like. All the fluids are filled. Overfilled. Someone left the rad cap off like a dumb butthole. And this thing is ready to rock and roll. I went underneath the Jeep, checked all my bolts, anything that I touched, plus anything that looked not good, and anything that I could move, I can't move anymore. So this thing is ready to rock and roll. and ready for his first test drive. Let's feel those brakes out and take her for a spin. So the brakes feel kind of questionable, so I'm gonna take it quick around the block just to feel out everything else, and then we're probably gonna bleed them. So time to give this thing a little baby send.
So much better. Before you could see the control arms and everything moving around. Now everything looks real solid.
So after taking this absolute beaut down the road, I learned a couple things. Feels like the alignment's a little off in the front, which is no big deal. Sadly, that's nothing we can do. We need to really take it to an alignment shop. And also, the brakes are kind of spongy. So I really think we need to bleed it. Luckily, the calipers, the bleeder valves are not shot, so it looks like we'll be able to easily bleed this thing. And another thing is, it doesn't look like the axle's perfectly center, so we're gonna diddle with the track bar a little and get this front axle a little center. We played with the track bar, we got it nice and tight, and we bled the brakes. Brakes feel better, but they don't feel like they should. I don't like that master cylinder that's in there. It is not a stock Cherokee master. Some guys like to throw Silverado ones in, Durango, Ram 1500s, all these stupid boosters to fix the 1-ton issue because you're putting discs in the back. But the best master I've ever used is a stock Cherokee master from 96 and up. It works great on my Jeep with 37s. You hit the brakes, you can lock them up. Same thing with this Jeep.
You distracted me.
So, as far as I'm concerned, this beauty is ready to go back to its owner and ready to be enjoyed fully for the first time. I can't wait to hear what he has to say, and I'd love to see his reaction to when he drives it for the first time. But guys, if you want to see builds like this and a whole lot more, then you better subscribe to our channel. See you next time.